Cool. Thank you. So once again, my name is Grant Blaisdell. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Copernic Space. Before I get into the product and everything around that, I of course want to give a little bit background on the story and why this was created in the first place, and why, as the title says, we're creating the marketplace for digital space assets and companies. And of course, I'll get into what digital space assets means, because as my discussions with loads of people and companies in the space has shown me, is that sometimes there's a little bit of a different understanding or approach as to what that is. So as far as our story itself, Copernic Space actually starts with a few generations ago with a professor of around aerospace at the military academy where I am right now, which is in Warsaw, Poland. And being where he was at that point in time, something that he always dreamed of was this term that's thrown around quite a bit nowadays, not just for this industry, but loads of industry as kind of a buzzword, which is democratization of the space economy, right? And that person, that professor, was actually my grandfather, and his daughter, my mother, carried kind of this mantle and this mission over the years through various activities in the tech space, startups, Fortune 500 companies, etc. And that, of course, led into my entrance into this field, which carried on this legacy of looking at new ways to bring about new opportunities or maximize opportunities as openly as possible for the space economy. And notice I keep using the term economy instead of industry, as we view these as two separate things that have definite distinctions. And those distinctions are very important to us because we're, of course, here to service the current space industry, but we view the space industry as scratching the surface of what really is the space economy that we're addressing, right? So this is led over the years from our activities, including, we have a foundation called the Lady Rocket Foundation that focuses on entrepreneurship for underprivileged kids mainly. So through all these activities, we noticed that this is a continuous problem, but in a new age digital sense, right? Ooh. Right, team, quick a bit on my background. So I do have this entrance in the space economy and activity over the years, but I really grit my teeth on, let's say, the startup space, originally in California in the digital media sphere, focused on mobile video distribution. So I was really focused on solving the issue of digital assets in how you understand media, music, etc. It's commercialization, distribution, monetization, and how all of that reaches back and connects to the original core creators, rights holders, etc. It's a very distant industry from the space one, but it weirdly shares certain common things. Eventually, this led me into blockchain technology because I realized I think people have aha moments around this tech. It made me realize actually that it was a certain key to solve many issues that I was trying to solve in digital media. And then I saw that extend across multiple industry sets, right? I then came back to Europe and I eventually co-founded a company called CoinFirm, which in early 2016, which very quickly became a global leader in big data analytics and specifically anti-money laundering for blockchain assets and cryptocurrencies. So, I've worked with and we've serviced anyone from some of the biggest banks in the world to the biggest exchanges. And it's also given me a unique, not just insight into kind of enterprise integrations around tech like this and how to build solutions and successful products around it, but also something that is important in the space economy and probably increasingly so as it digitizes more, which is regulatory aspects, right? Other members of the team share decades and decades of relevant experience. So our CTO has spent time in cybersecurity, aerospace, even has some blockchain experience, which is a unique combination. As you see, Eva, we share the last name. That actually is my mother. This part of this original vision, as I said, the core, the roots of this sit in things that she's been fighting for years, right? We filled out the team so far with other members that fulfill specific points, people active in the space industry, people who are some of the best at what they do when it comes to the blockchain aspect, and people I've worked with successfully over the years, right? I'm sure a lot of people here know the market just as well as I do, if not better. We're specifically focused, and this is where the digital space assets comes in. When we take a look at the space economy, we're not focused on the upstream element, and why we say digital space assets are things that are already inherently digital. Actually, we'll bring up an example that I think is a great validation for what we're doing, which is Honeywell. And interestingly, a lot of people don't know this project. Honeywell last year launched a digital marketplace online, blockchain based, focused on aerospace machine parts, right? Which has been actually quite a success. Go check it out. It's props to Honeywell for doing something that progressive. It's done well. The thing with that is that that's focused on a physical element, which you have a whole different sphere of logistics around that, whole different sphere of access around that. And it's one of one, right? A downstream or a digital space asset, which I count as satellite data, imagery, some elements of IP, software elements, etc. These are things that I can that you can
That's quite a few of them. It's more than we're.
okay that you can commercialize technically infinitely for the same digital asset, right? So we view that, especially with how obviously economies have moved, people's acquisition, purchase habits, business engagement, relationship habits. That's obviously the next frontier for all industries, and not just this one. So we view this as what to focus on, right? Much more dynamic to us. And we already see that's well over $200 billion, right? And here's once again that difference between space economy and space industry. To us, we view that as the space industry mainly transacting with each other, entities that already know everything and what they're doing. We view the space economy as this further on extension, with you're seeing in the last point, which is a cool little stat. Unfortunately, it's very hard to find lots of market kind of analysis across most geographies for things like this. But an interesting one that we pulled out was that, which I think shows when I'm talking about scratching the surface, or what is the digital space economy that we're focused on. And that's just Australia, which isn't the biggest market, and that's 1.4 million companies. Of course, that doesn't represent the full amount of companies that you can engage currently and expect to be able to onboard or execute transactions with, but it shows the potential. This is someone I actually spoke to recently. I like this quote a lot. I think it speaks to that point that I just made, right? That why I say not space industry, but space economy is because the applications that we're making is obviously applying across everything. And this kind of sits on some of these obstacles that someone, especially like me, who's working in this space, just sees to me. Someone who's spent loads of time around, let's say, e-commerce, digital platforms, streaming, etc. Right? So it's very funny that a $200+ billion industry has some attempts at kind of marketplaces, but generally hasn't made something that provides easy access, secure, much more efficient and effective than the business processes that are today, which I'm sure many of you know that are on this call are quite archaic compared to rest economies and industries. So, it's kind of as if the space economy or industry hasn't really entered Web 2.0, let alone Web 3.0, which is what we're also bringing to the table. And as I'm going to get into later, provides very unique benefits that help commercialize and maximize monetization for entities in the space economy, right? So we want to focus on being very user focused and centric and providing them an experience to where they can easily explore, engage, acquire, and access these digital space assets. So something we're focused on, for example, is you don't have to get off the platform to access the imagery or the data sets. You use the token, which what I'll get into later, as unique credentials through the platform to access it directly, right? So as many of you know in the industry, there's an issue around data transfer. I talk to some entities and they say, yeah, well, there's still physical hard drives being sent to us, et cetera, right? But the main point is, and kind of what I like to say, is what eBay brought to retail, right? And if you can open your head to that statement, it even made people with 10 Jordans in their closet, someone who's able to commercialize something very easily, securely, with buyers on the other end of the world, right? And create some sort of level of trust. And we're going to take that to the maximum by also applying these new technologies. The one to your right is a second element and layer to this marketplace I'm going to get into that we're very focused on. I've grind my teeth as a startup guy. I'm sure there's some people on this call here that are in the position where they've had a fundraise for some sort of space project, et cetera, and understand the struggle, what it is to fundraise. Because of my background in the crypto and the blockchain space, and kind of the revolution, I don't like using that term loosely, but what it proved through, let's say, the ICO model, is that the global public is very hungry to provide financing, funding, and support to high risk, progressive ventures, and especially if the space market would open up to that, right? So that's a big issue that we're trying to address. Another one, which is cool around, the tech that we're using, is around, like it says, the rights management, licensing, eliminating inefficient transaction processes and middlemen, because a lot of those processes and middlemen are mainly trust-based, right? So if you can apply certain technologies that help alleviate some of that, more and better for everyone else. And just the fact that, like I said, once again, there's no easily accessible point that's easily to transact with, acquire. That whole space economy that could be doesn't really have an interface to interact, right? And to expect that space companies all around are going to be going with a salesperson to all these outside entities is also quite not realistic. So we're flipping that, right? And we're doing it according to the standards of the entities that will be using it. So as I get into this later, where we are right now, we're working directly with lots of partners to understand how to best create these processes, so that it's eBay to retail without being eBay, right? I can repeat everything, but I addressed in the last slide already, right? I also like this quote. This is kind of the next era of the economy also that we're going to bring to the table, which is allowing ownership of this new space economy that's being made, whether that's through financing or that's through direct purchase of these digital space assets and treating them as such. So I gave what I kind of count as a quote to actually an executive in a pretty high profile space company here. They were talking about democratization of space, right? And they said, space is democratized because now it's not just NASA or governments who can launch satellites. I mean, I don't know what exactly the cost is. I heard around 4 million sometimes to launch that. That's not democratization. When the average person can participate. So, I said, I don't have enough money to own a satellite or shoot a satellite off into space, but I do have enough money to own 1/1000th of a satellite, right? And as these digital asset elements of the space economy continues to develop, We're going to need great systems and ways that are trustful and not reliant on exclusively on third parties that can go around and manipulate and manage things or make them less transparent, but something that is as secure, transparent, automated, provides all these benefits as possible. So that leads to the marketplace, right? As I mentioned earlier, we're focused on what we call the digital space economy. So mainly downstream, right? And we're providing them a unique way to, take assets that, let's say, they're already commercializing in some way, but first off, securely register their ownership to them, right? So that's what we call a root asset in the engine of our platform in the back end. That's called a root asset. And based off that root asset, I can then create certain offers. These can be, for example, licenses to access this satellite imagery set for 1 year, right? And what happens actually then is, based off that root asset, it creates and registers and creates an offer in a what we call non-fungible token. And in that non-fungible token, we can embed metadata that includes, for example, that it is a year-long license. So after a year, it dies and loses its access credentials, right? Of course, obviously put access credentials right into it. So as I mentioned earlier, when it hits the other end of the buyer, they can take that in the platform and access it directly in there. But that NFT is, that non-fungible token is unique. It's one of one, right? So when they put that offer up, the other entity comes in. What we are actually creating automatically for each offer is a smart contract. So really kind of simple way to look at it is automated escrow. So if these are terms that are set by that entity, and they can set filters, for example, to block out certain countries' regulatory aspects, and that entity wants to purchase it, it's approved, it automatically unlocks, sends the NFT over that token, so that ownership and that license and that access to it. And then the money transfers over automatically as well at the same time, on the same railways, all visible, fully auditable, right? The not sexy part, but actually the basic end of this platform and system, is that it's a digital rights management system, right? That's the core basic place of it, right? But what we really look at it is the economic foundation for the digital space economy. I don't like doing this much. I think it's actually bad taste doing videos in presentations generally, but I'm going to let this play and walk you through. I'll get in this later, but what stage we're in, but we've passed MVP stage. We're working on new things. So we had a development call a second ago, and I had the team quickly record kind of what it looks like right now to register a digital asset and create an offer, and then the other entity come on from the other end, grab it, and then you can see it in its inventory. On its surface, it might not look that impressive, especially with what we're used to in the e-commerce space right now. But what's impressive about it, especially, is what's going on in the back end, these tokenizations, creating of these smart contracts and these what we call smart offers, right? I'm not going to show you what's happening on the back end in the blockchain itself, right? But you can very quickly see that we're actually, bringing that user experience of e-commerce to the space economy. So for example, now this is their inventory. These are root assets they've already registered. He says create offer there, right? You also see here pending KYM, right? This is from my regulatory days, right? So every entity that's onboarded on this platform goes through an intense commercial KYC first. So know your client. We onboard them, we know where they're from, whether they're risky or not, whether they're acceptable, sanctioned, et cetera. Right? But when they're trying to register these root assets that then they're trying to commercialize, they need to go through a process we call KYM. So know your material, right? Which means we need to validate that they have the capability or right to do this. Okay. So we're not going to give you, the selling your Jordans on eBay experience and smoothness, right? We need to validate certain things. But we're definitely not going to have people being able to sell fake Jordans like eBay does, right? This is where they're creating their asset. Remember, this is our MVP version. So one thing you don't see here is, for example, in the ad description, one additional feature there is that's where you're going to start putting in that metadata aspect, those unique credentials, et cetera, right? Give the option to that entity to customize really what they want to give, what type of access they want to give, right? We're going, we're going to have standards, but we're also going to customization, right? So we want the space economy to kind of develop itself. Of course, in the beginning, we're going to go with what we think are the biggest focuses. But what I mean by that is, for example, suggesting categories, things like that, right? But these are all things that are going to come out in our use case execution and tests with some of our initial partners, right? So you even see KYM there as a part of it. We skip the KYM when it comes to this thing, and we're going to go down straight to creating an offer, right? So you see that just got registered as the root asset. So they can create now with this infinite types of licenses based off of it, right? They're creating one here. One cool thing that's going to happen on this, and yes, it is on blockchain rails right now. So in the beginning, you do register using a crypto wallet. It's the safest thing you can use, but that's not what's going to happen in the market ready product. Okay. In the market ready product, there's going to be no crypto element. It's going to be fiat. So dollars, euros in, dollars, euros out. Anything that happens in between is what we call unstable coins. So they're converted to cryptocurrencies that match a dollar, for example, and they're just there to move along with the transfer of the token. So that it's all transparent, and not only is the asset movement fully auditable, et cetera, but so is the financial value movement, right? So here, this entity is picking it off the root asset. You can only create offers off an approved root asset, right? Adds its title, et cetera, right? Interesting thing there that if you caught it real quick, is that because of the regulatory or even the unique environment, the space economy, we allow entities to have certain regulatory blocks, such as which country the entity's from, right? Which for some people, that's important, right? So now you see this in offers that are happening. Now, how does the other end experience this sort of access? Same sort of logins, easy with the wallet, right? They got a balance there. They got $1,000 to spend, nothing in their inventory. Let's go to the marketplace. Let's get the thing we just registered. Yeah. Okay, let's do it. Confirmed with your wallet that you're going to do it. Confirm the transaction. Cool. That's gone off the marketplace. Okay, now it's in our inventory, right? You also see there that there's a button right there that says create offer. Why is that button there? Is because this is also kind of a holy grail of what's going to come along further, which, call it a crazy goal, but a goal nonetheless. NASA and the ESA, for example, they have to give a lot of their data away from free, right? It's mandate, rightfully so. The thing is that there's lots of entities who are then taking that data, using other data, potentially restructuring, and then selling it on to different providers. What a system like us allows them to do through the tokenization element, and not just them, any provider in this element, right? They can come to deals like this, is okay, we give you this data set and license for free. Fine. Here's that token that represents that. Okay, but if you commercialize anything using this, we get 10% revenue. That's embedded in this. You're using this to create this. That's a new token that has that metadata embedded in it as well. And moves along in the commercialization phase. The money's transacted and tied in there in those smart contracts. It flows all the way back to ESA or NASA, right? So it's building this, I don't want to call it secondary market, because that's technically not what it is in this case, but it builds this extended market that exists, but we just don't really have the tools to trace it and move it in that sort of way. And now to the smart fund, what we call. So that's the financing one. I got into it a little bit. When we're launching in the beginning, due to regulatory reasons, we're only launching it on one of the three token types. So of the three, there's security, right? So that means that you're investing for equity, et cetera, directly in a startup, whatever it may be, right? The other one is utility. So what you're buying is a token that serves some sort of function on that platform, product, whatever it may be. So I buy this and it gets me this data, right? Under this sort of price set or pricing model, right? And last one is what we call kudos. This is charitable foundation supporting R&D. It could be startups and stuff, but it's just strict financial support. But we're incentivizing it by providing them tokens we call kudos, and also these special non-fungible tokens we call badges, which, why do most people, a lot of people really give for charitable means is a certain feeling. And if they can show that off even more, then more the better. So these are unique, undeniable, I have done this and provided this and supported this, right? So we have this long-term belief of, like, if NASA has a budget shortfall in the project, they can put it on the SMART fund and allow the American public to fund it, which they would happily help, right? Obviously there's bigger roadblocks in place for that to happen, but like I said, these are long-term dreams. And we're going to start off with the charitable stuff, focused around some foundations, some R&D projects, and some kind of futuristic startups as well. Where we're all today, so pretty much what I showed you before, right? So you can create these assets, you can manage them, you can sell by them via the smart offers, and the smart fund launches around February-ish, right? So right now, and I'm going to get in the timeline in a sec, we're starting scoping for direct use cases that are industry viable. Because what we're going to be doing early on is kind of, proving, let's say, our worth or our point in a sense, by working directly with our initial partners, defining these use cases and going and finding them new clients, new types of client types, which I'm working directly with entities that, whether they're governmental space agencies who work with governments or big corporations that look for that, or startup environments that help funnel those sort of relationships. Business model, as you saw, everything is automated to the best sense from a business model transactional sense through the smart offers. So anytime one of those smart offers goes through, we're not playing middleman transactionally. We're not playing custodian and anything like that. We have, the automated escrow in that sense. So on certain transactional tiers, we just get an automated percentage, whether that's on the marketplace or the smart fund. Within a few years, we expect a good amount of transactions. I actually think these estimates could end up being conservative. I hope I'm wrong, therefore right about that last statement, especially around the revenue end. But we'll see. In a certain sense, we're building a new layer to this economy. But I think a lot of you will share the opinion that is the viable next one. Timeline real quick. Like I said, we released the MVP. We're onboarding first users and doing the use case execution. We hope to get this beta version out. It's not our big go-to-market full feature, right? In between here, actually starting soon, we're going through our first major funding round. So that's going to be a big deal for us, and that will help us go to market and once again acquire first 10 transactions and hit those big first revenue goals. I mean, big in a certain sense, right? But we're trying to be also pragmatic. So like I said, I think a lot of these are relatively conservative. In our current focus, so anyone knows, anyone wants to help, anyone wants to get involved. We're very commercially focused. So like I said, our goal is, and what we make our bread and butter on, is helping entities execute and commercialize, do it much more effectively, efficiently, take these kind of old school business processes that can take days, weeks, months, shorten them down, right? So once people especially get comfortable, you can do this stuff in minutes, right? So that's a big focus of ours always. Marketing is another thing that we want to bring something that we feel is kind of unique to the table, because we're not very technically we're not so technically focused. We're not upstream focused. We're more commercialization, bring people together, create a marketplace, an economy, a new digital space economy. as you may see, we're pretty progressive around how we communicate in our marketing, and I hope more events and speaking engagements like this provides more kind of education awareness on the market. um, Talent, big thing for us coming up. So filling certain key positions out for that market launch and product launch, right? So we got some more features to add on there before it is that full product thing. Cool thing about us is that for a project in the space economy, um, we're pretty mature as far as I think product stage for an entity that hasn't been around long, hasn't done any major fundraising, and we're easy to engage with, right? So we can interact with a good percentage of the space industry and economy. And so, I welcome everyone's questions, comments, potential engagements, and want to thank Michael and the team at New Space NYC once again for allowing me to come on here.
Thanks, Grant. It sounds like a awesome platform, and so thanks for that presentation. So we have some questions coming in, but before we go to those, I guess we have a little discussion on our end as well. So you have so this sounds like it was mostly self-funded, you said, to start
Yeah.
off?
Yep.
And how long have you been in development with this already?
Oh, that's a tough question. So Mm, before I founded CoinFirm, this project in its concept and actual initial work was done. So really, it's 5 to 6 years. What happened is, and I had a lot of tough lessons in the startup space, especially around timing, maturity of certain things, et cetera. One thing is that blockchain technology, let alone the market, wasn't mature enough to do what we wanted this to be, and we would come out with an empty, a hollow wall, right, of what could be and should be. The other aspect is, the maturity, let's say, of the space economy, the space market, its participants, to view this as a problem, a need, the obvious next step. I come out of digital media originally, music industry as well, and there you have a market that is supposedly so progressive, open, and creative, right? And how did they react to the coming of their kind of digital revolution, right? Was at first it was kind of like ignore. When it started being like, oh, okay, then it was like, nah, we don't need it, let's try to do what we can to block it out. And then it kind of ate the people who didn't move with it, right? So no industry and no economy is spared from that. Um, so with that said, we didn't think it was the right time for us to also push this down, the players in the market. As the tech, as blockchain and these sort of other technologies has matured, as mentalities have begun switching, et cetera, we decided that it was time to go full with that. And so that's another reason why I left CoinFirm day-to-day management, right? And I've invested myself in this because the timing is about right.
Cool. So is there like a tie directly to CoinFirm, or are there any of their services used in
Uh,
the platform?
no, the only thing that's under consideration around that, and that all depends on the payment gateway that we use, is around the bread and butter of CoinFirm, which is analytics for anti-money laundering, right? So when those stable coins are moving around in the system, whether or not at the ends of them we have to run certain analytics and checks. So I'd love that. It's CoinFirm's my baby, and this is my other baby, so it's all family. So any way I can connect them or or inbreed them in a horrible manner, then that's better.
Right. Last question from us, and then we'll hand it over. So
Sure.
for space internationally, you have all these treaties, and you have to kind of manage that. Are you guys planning to get into the legal management of those things, or are you handing that off to the marketplace?
Especially in the beginning, and from my experience, especially around regulated platforms, et cetera, is try to offhand as much to the user and third-party solutions or providers where possible on that. Over time, maybe we'll enter that, because that's a whole new tool suite, to be honest. Right. So, and that I think goes outside of our initial stretch of like digital rights management. I don't think it falls under that. So we want to focus on executing this and building the best marketplace and product, and most importantly, building, kind of critical mass, right? Because the problem with a lot of kind of innovative or competitive to the monopoly digital platforms is that they have a very hard time creating or pulling away critical mass onto their platforms. That's why everyone hates Facebook, but what you going to do, right?
All right. We have one question from Saudi here, and then we'll go ahead and pass it over.
So Grant, you spoke a little bit about how the mentality changed in the space ecosystem. How do you think prospectively that's going to look in this year, 2021, and in the future?
As with anything worthwhile and anything that deals with culture or mentality sets, et cetera, I think time is an element of it. Majority of the positive and really enthusiastic reactions I get are from younger executives or entrepreneurs in the industry. Not to say that there's an age thing with it, because it's not a universal thing. But for example, I'm in Poland, and Poland left communism 25 years ago, right around there. And people always say, well, when is that going to change a little bit here, change? And most people answer, when that generation dies out. I'm bringing a really extreme example here, but it's not going to be an easy thing. When leaders in the industry think democratization is some millionaires can shoot some millionaire stuff up, and it's not just NASA who can do it, you probably have a little bit of a mentality battle there as to how accessible, and how easy to acquire should this data, this imagery, et cetera, be. Or on the flip end, which I've run into a lot, which is kind of this, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Which is, we got a few big contracts, mainly government related ones, right? And this isn't a focus of ours right now. Which there's a few issues with that one I brought up earlier, which is, well, eventually there's going to be a wave, right? And are you still going to be in the position to be able to catch that wave or catch up to it? And maybe you'll have some, smaller startup, well-funded startup who's being really aggressive, and they will eat a good piece of your pie, and you're going to have to figure out new ways, and you're going to have to play catch up. So to answer your question, I'm very optimistic. I think, once again, we're starting at a relatively right time. According to, our projections, I'd give it 4 years for something like this to really be churning and start becoming an industry norm type of thing, for the players with the processes and the capabilities to do so. Because the main thing I get goes, you're going to have a tough time with some of these really, really big entities and their processes, and then being able to step outside of them and do something like this.
All right, great. So we will go ahead and start from the top in the chat. Grant, we have some questions for you.
Sure.
And so the first one's from Mari C, if I pronounced that correctly. And yeah, Mari C, if you want to speak your question, you can. Otherwise, we'll just read it here. So just raise your hand if you want to speak it. But the question is, what about other cryptocurrencies other than stable coins? Will there be Bitcoin or maybe Dogecoin that you can use?
This guy's trolling me with the Dogecoin. For you guys that don't know, Dogecoin is a cryptocurrency that was created pretty much as a joke, and it's actually worth like hundreds of millions of dollars. And like Elon Musk kind of trolls the crypto economy with it by like posting like Dogecoin is the best or something. Then you see it go up like 50%. To answer your question, Maurice, yes, we of course are not going to ignore the kryptonites, and we're going to allow them to engage with crypto. It's just I'm not going to force traditional businesses, companies, let alone like a Boeing to pay in Bitcoin or Ethereum. Plus, I don't think paying in Bitcoin is a very long-term economic smart move either way. So, yeah, to answer your question.
Okay, so the next question is from Dennis Sillen. Dennis, do you want to read your question, or I'll go ahead and read it out for you? Okay, so he is asking, how do I get involved with Grant? Please tell.
GB, so my initials, GB at copernicspace.com, like our URL. You have that URL in the event invites and all that stuff. Shoot me an email. I'm always open. We're going to pride ourselves in our company culture on of course prioritizing what we need to prioritize and execute that, but never treating anyone as too big or too small, right? And like I said, this is an early stage still in a certain sense. We want to hit the market this year, but I'm more than happy to talk and engage with people. So thank you. That emotionally means a lot to me, because that means that people find what we're doing to be valuable. And like I said, this is my baby as well, so that means a lot. Thanks.
Hi, Eva. We see your hand. We had two questions before we can get to you. Thanks for joining session. It's good to meet you. And okay, so next question we have here is from Michael Doyle. And shout out to Michael Doyle. He was actually an old member of New Space NYC before he went out to Seattle. He's always been involved with space projects, so he's a good contact.
Hi, Michael.
Space stuff. Question was, what's an example of software you see as being offered on your platform?
You know what? That's one segment that we've had kind of the least talking with and dealing with. So if that's a space that you're in, please talk to me. I don't think anyone is past, but I'm definitely not past learning, first off. Second off, if the use case and everything fits and you sound interested and you're interested in it, and we collaborate well around that, I'm open to move that further. So that's actually an element that I'd like to focus on more. We've had great reaction around satellite data and imagery. Like I said, I haven't had a big exposure yet to the software side, but I know there's a big opportunity there. I've built a successful company in a very progressive and innovative space. There's certain, as I'm going through this with Copernic Space, there's certain comparisons, these things that are parallels that I'm running into, where, when we started that company 6 years ago, 5 years ago, AML for crypto, or what are you talking about? And I get that reaction sometimes here too. It's very B2B based. So I don't know how to answer that question 100% yet. I know there's a massive opportunity there. I know that if I can tokenize API licenses for any sort of space related software and make them much more available, and APIs, unless you're making them super complex, are generally things that most companies of any reason can handle at this point. And I think they would probably be easier even to apply for benefits in other industries than, for example, satellite data, which I think you have to be pretty good at the analysis and application end of it, which I think is another opportunity on our marketplace is for these analytics providers. That's why I love that case of, you know, the NASA thing and the token moving along the rail. But either way, please contact me, or if there's a way through Michael, you can give me your contact. I'd like to talk more about that.
Yeah, software is a good one. You mentioned NASA's IP a lot, and a lot of their IP might be software. And then also the fact that like you might just give exposure to like a startup, software startup that wants to get more exposure.
Well, that's the other, hold up before you can, that's the other thing, you know, when I was starting this early on, I would ask people a question. I go, you want a place where you can see, engage, and who knows, like maybe properly engage, transact with, you know, the best projects in the space economy. And I'd always get a blank response. You know, the best resource I found recently is Space Ventures and this database that they created. That's the best thing that I've seen in the industry. And that's just pretty much a database of companies and certain info, you know, related to it.
Next question.
Sure. So the next question is from Jamie Robb, who says, what is the biggest threat you see to the success of Copernic?
Some of the stuff we mentioned, so timing, I've learned the hard way, as I said, around that. We might be too early. Who the hell knows? The other one, it also mentioned processes, right? Are we going to be able to manage that? But when that problem has been brought up to me, that kind of my experience and kind of that attitude from the crypto and blockchain space comes in, and I go, you know, which you got to understand, like originally, you know, their attitude was, and still is for a lot of people, is like, be your own bank, you know, like don't rely on the massive and monopolistic incumbent attitude. So my thing, I usually respond, listen, okay, yeah, I'd love to have a Boeing, or I'd love to have, you know, one of these, you can't even call startups anymore, you know, these huge startups in the space. I'd love to have all that. But if I can get 100 SME types, startup types, aggressive, hungry, you know, understand that, you know, they can't rely on government contract every year, want to commercialize better, then I'm good with that. And we can, you know, like I said, critical mass, like you prove that point. It just takes enough players doing enough successful transactions, and the other entities will, you know, over time, will become accustomed with it. At first, like I said, they might try to be kind of competitive with it in a sense. So maybe that's another issue I'm not seeing, is the disruption element. But my whole approach is, I don't like the disruption attitude that especially Silicon Valley has kind of built over the past 20 years. My thing more is, hey, I want to provide you something that's easy to use, easy to onboard, is not, you know, do your normal stuff. I'm not here to disrupt your normal processes. I'm here to give you an add value tool, solution, and marketplace to better manage and commercialize your digital space assets. Right? I'm not trying to disrupt whatever they're doing. I'm not here to kill Boeing or NASA. I don't have that approach. If you see some that I don't, please tell me. I'm more than happy to, you know, figure that out, because I'm sure I'm missing a mine hidden under something.
Thanks, Jamie, for your question. And Eva, if you're ready now, I can go ahead.
Yeah, by the way, little background. Eva is Lady Rocket. She's the co-founder of the Lady Rocket Foundation, and as I said, the root and original visionary behind this, and the daughter of you know, the original person who planted all of this. So welcome.
Yeah, get me this. Can I speak?
Yeah, sure.
We can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me. Okay. Hello to everybody. Thank you for pulling it off. You saw me might be walking through the part of the Grant's presentation. Grant, thank you very much. I just want to mention that I was hiking in the Santa Susana Mountains, and I took you with me coming down. And why is it important? This is the place where NASA tested Saturn V, Apollo 11 engines. And I'm mentioning it because Copernic Space is a great engine, and Grant did extraordinary job talking to you about something unprecedented, financial engine of the financial industry, of the space industry. I just want to add that there is a big heart of Copernic Space that is beating in different places. Recognize Susan Copeland, who is with us. I am in Los Angeles, next to the former Saturn V factory. Susan, one of the co-founders of the Copernic Space, is in Vandenberg Air Force Base, Lompoc area, and many other initial participants are also strategically placed. I will have a question to Grant, but this is also my statement. I don't know if you can see it, but it says there is no backup for space. And the relevance is, I believe that Copernic Space is going to do killing financially and saving otherwise issue of space pollution, which is struggling with getting funding. We already have a pollution in space, and Copernic Space is going to be very mission driven. Grant mentioned a charity and philanthropy. I cannot think about the bigger philanthropy than NASA, actually, International Space Station project, which is running out of funds. So look for us also in those inspired places. And just to share with you an excitement, because we are in a difficult times here in the States, when I was walking in my t-shirt, I had waves, people honking the horn. I don't know if it was my blue hair, but I think it was NASA. So the passion for space, for NASA is good and alive. Question to Grant, can you talk a little bit about using Copernic to finance challenging projects like space environment, cleaning up space? And two, tell us a little bit about our meeting with Elon Musk and how you opened the door with Elon Musk to potentially migrate SpaceX IP to Copernic Space.
Thanks for that. First aspect, something I alluded before with NASA funding. As I mentioned that, NASA obviously runs into budget shortfalls. There's loads of other public or private projects that are obviously great, ambitious, and worthy. So Eva provided one around space debris, space pollution, depends on how you call it, which actually we wrote an article recently on this where we talk a little bit about public financing for things like this on our blog. So go to copernicspace.com and to the blog if you want to read more about that. The point is, and this is another one of these long-term promises of blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies, is around transparency, right? So a big issue that a lot of people do have with lots of kind of nonprofit situations, charitable situations, et cetera, is our government's a great example, is there's practically no transparency as far as funds are moving, how's they're used, et cetera. So one end of the great long term of what we're bringing is that a much better increased transparency in the charitable fundraising space. So a project like NASA will be able to much better not only fund but track from the public. Right. But the holy grail of it all is the billions to, who knows, trillions of dollars in public financing, funding, and support that could be provided on platforms that are distributed in a certain sense, like we're applying with this tech, but are centralized as to where it can create critical mass of projects, individuals, etc. So this is good that I got this question, by the way. Do you plan to have local representatives for different countries? So I'm glad I got that question. Martina, where are you from? Where's Martina from? Because she's asking that. She's from somewhere. Michael, can you find out where Martina's from?
Yeah.
There's going to be more people.
Bulgaria, she said.
Okay. All right. So please take my contact, whether it's contact@copernicspace.com or my personal one. I don't have any specific focus on Bulgaria at the moment because I do live a certain amount of time and am active in the startup space here in Poland. I have run into a bunch of entrepreneurs from Bulgaria. So I'm more than happy to hear what you guys are up to up there and if there's anything that we can do together. So
Grant, Elon Musk.
Oh, the Elon Musk thing. Okay, sorry. The second one. So unique experience, got to go to SpaceX and have some interaction with now leaving head of NASA, Jim Bridenstine and Elon Musk when they were actually just before, when they were working on the first American manned launch that happened recently. I asked them a question when it came to, hey, you know, you guys are collaborating. There must be loads of intellectual property of immense value that's moving back and forth. How are you guys approaching not only, you know, sharing and managing that, but eventually sharing, managing, and commercializing that much more openly in the future with the public? Elon answered first, and he, in a very, very much, you know, like kind of like a crypto person would answer it. He goes, "We're going to make all SpaceX IP public and available," which is a big statement, right? Jim, obviously, on the other hand, had to be a little bit more political about it for very many reasons. And he said, you know, first off, thanks to Elon for, you know, giving us, you know, all these, you know, resources and saying that. He said, you know, we have to be much more careful about that. So, you know, for example, back to the platform and the marketplace, that's why you saw in there right away, even in the MVP, the regulatory consideration, you know, because we have that KYC process in the beginning, I get to geo block, I get to, you know, filter certain aspects and also create something I didn't get into, but also create private offers between parties that aren't public, aren't on the marketplace, as well as what we call enterprise marketplaces. So if big entities like a Boeing or NASA itself want to build a private marketplace, we can, you know, white label or extend and build out private marketplaces that work in the same manner as Copernic Space, just under tighter scrutiny and security. So that was.
By the way, we are taking some interesting steps to reconnect with Elon Musk last few days. So you guys stay tuned. Maybe we'll share it with you, maybe not, because it's driven also by the issue of privacy of the other side. But this is maybe why Grant didn't want to, you know, be so upfront about it. But a lot of excitement is happening. And today we sent flowers from Copernic Space to Grimes, who is sick with corona. Grimes, partner of Elon, and a musician just like Grant. So I'm talking about it because Copernic is truly a community, in addition to being extraordinary financial engine and blockchain engine. And we are doing some unexpected, unusual things to build community. And Grant has been on numerous SpaceX rocket launch events with us. And I'm talking about it so you know that there is a big muscle and heart and probably huge funding that we dedicated to public relations part of Copernic Space, which is very, very unusual.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yes, it is. It is very exciting. And I just want to, you know, I'm sure that you are very happy to see Elon Musk's success. So there are some, you know, good things happening. Of course, he's concerned with the illness in his family. He had corona, he thinks. he was
Okay,
taking
can I-
NyQuil to
do
get
we have
through
any more
it.
questions?
But
'Cause
yes,
I'm not trying to go
sorry
on
to
an
hijack
Elon Musk
the conversation.
current
But
status.
just want to tell you that this is a hard project with a lot of, additional emotional part to it. And thank you, Grant, for phenomenal presentations. This was the first time I could hear you so formally. Great job.
Thank you. Always nice to have mother on the line.
Yeah.
Curse and a blessing.
Yeah, thanks. All right, can you mute my mother now, please?
So, Grant, we have, I guess we can continue the conversation if that's okay.
Sure, go for it.
So, New Space, me and Sadia, who is my wife, by the way, we've seen a lot of startups. We've seen things similar to crowdfunding platforms, not crypto-based ones, but that, to me, that almost kind of feels like another separate platform, another product, another brand. That's how are you going to manage that like user experience? Like, how are you going to route people from buying, satellite data to contributing money to a project?
There are two different segments on the platform. So just like you deal with any sort of digital conversion focused company or business, even at the top in the tabs, you can segregate those elements. We view one as kind of an inherent lead to the other. So I don't expect average Joe to be acquiring satellite data. But I do expect average Joe to potentially be interested in getting involved in space projects in any way he can, which the way average Joe can is by giving $5 or $10, right? Your point's very good in that sense, because it's a personal worry of mine as to not segment or dilute ourselves too much as a product or a team. But the interesting thing about it is that people get passionate for both of them. And I want, a startup. The only reason we're not launching with the security and the utility focus in the beginning is, like I said, regulatory ones. But I would like, a startup who is able to onboard onto our marketplace to have a quick and seamless way to show themselves off to the global public as a startup and access financing directly through that. I watched the ICO boom in the crypto space produced 90 something % of those projects were complete crap, garbage. Another good percentage were scams, right? But it proved a certain use case and capability in the world, which is highly innovative, high risk projects. If there's a place to where people can engage and provide financing, they will. And if it's in a very secure and trusted manner on something that is known to be regulated, then even more so. We saw an end to that phase, but it's about to come back in a vengeance with tokenized securities and those sort of elements. Difference between us and those crowdfunding elements is that aspect of ownership, incentivizing it, the tokenized element, whether that's from the charity to the security element. So remember when I said that I can't own a whole satellite. I can't buy and own a whole satellite, but I can buy and own 1/1000th of one, right? So that same thing relates towards any asset of value. And just like, I can't break down a penny any further down, right? The revolution that's happened around tokenization and crypto is that it's added whole different layers towards digital value. So, the question has always been like, why is it so hard for me to send, if I own Apple shares, why can't I send them to my grandmother?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, who the hell has the right to decide that for me? And why aren't there systems that allow that? Well, let's say you even have the right to do that and they built that process. all these platforms are walled gates, right? The revolution and uniqueness around like crypto that you know I also got into is like, you know, most people don't understand Bitcoin very well, for example. I don't know why, because it's really simple, but everything is visible. Every transaction of all time is there, right? So once we get back to, you know, talking about, you know, transparency of charities, all these sort of things, I'm kind of getting lost a little bit right now, but there's vast differences in providing a tokenized model as opposed to I'm going to give you a coffee mug for your $10 Visa contribution, right? But I think your point's valid. And it's something that's going to be proven in the market. Maybe we'll have to pivot and we'll have to segregate those two things, right? But we'll see. I want it to work in an ecosystem sense, as in, hey, we've onboarded you, we've KYC'd you onto the marketplace. You want to go on the smart fund? Okay, you're KYC'd. We got that. Now give us the know your material. Show us that in a regulatory manner, you're allowed to do this, right? And then just move them on, right? I pride myself on marketing, increasing brand and shareholder value through communication and attention. As you can see, Eva, my mother is inherently good at attention as well. So one thing that I think we're going to kind of bring to the industry as well is, actually, I think Elon Musk is pretty good at it in his own way, but bring this kind of different type of attention that attracts more than just people who are strictly in the space already. And that's, you know, that's been a life mission of Eva, for example. So one reason you see, you know, the blue hair and the fashion, you know, her and I have been doing space fashion for years in LA, is to attract people, right? That's why the Lady Rocket Foundation uses entertainment and things like that to attract youth into space entrepreneurship, right? So we're taking a little bit different approach, I think, than what was before. But like I said, valid point once again.
Yeah, there might be some unique synergy, like you have a startup, and one of the main proofs of if a startup is viable in the early days is if they have any sales. So if you have a software company on your platform selling licenses already, and then they're trying to raise money, you can kind of show those stats that say like, hey, you know, we're trying to raise money. We already have, you know, 100 sales through the Copernic platform as well. No,
Man, now you're thinking, and those sales can be proven, they're auditable. You know, I've been in the startup space for a while, loads of sales and all these things are bullshit and manipulated, right? So, love you, man. That's a great point, to be honest. And that's the other thing, you know, about this fully auditable system. Everything's back there, those badges. So you'll also be able to see this guy, if he's provided funds on what level on the platform before, whether these are people you should be accepting, right? Because we KYC everyone. You know, I've successfully ran a token sale before, and you know, around the time it was around 16 million in Ethereum. I've seen how this process work and can work very successfully, done in a regulated manner, you know, fully compliant, et cetera, right? But like I said, the regulatory environment right now needs to mature. I think by the end of this year, we'll look a lot better for securities and utilities.
we have a couple other questions that have came in. We have Vince, who was asking.
I got you, Vince. Here you go, buddy.
Thank you. And then we have another question from Jamie. Jamie is asking, what do you think needs to be done to further increase public awareness of space?
Yeah, it's like kind of my experience out of crypto once again. So what I saw, big mistakes, still mistakes being made there. And I see this a lot with high-tech scientific communities. Stop acting like you're speaking to people who speak and understand things the way that you do. Right. One of the great things, one of the few things, good things Hollywood has done in recent memory is kept that sort of element alive. If you remember some of the more memorable movies of the past 5-10 years, a bunch of them have been space related. But I think it has to be done with the purpose. And thanks for the question, because that's obviously a big mission of ours. I was on a call, I'm not going to name which space agency, it was a national space agency 2 days ago. And they were talking about, well, yeah, we really want to get, the entrepreneurship thing going and help startups and get more young people inspired into, and they're talking about having panel discussions, and it's like, that's cool. Right. But I'm sure enough of you have seen, the kind of industry panel discussions, and they're usually just people agreeing with each other and being nice to each other. Right. And there's not much value or anything constructed out of it. So my thing to this woman is very nice and very well intentioned and wants to do good things. But as some of you may know, being in these sort of organizations is like, that old game like at fairs where you have your like hands tied behind your back and you got to eat the apples in the trough with water. It's kind of like that. And I told her, I go, listen, you need to set things up one-on-one with the purpose, right? Take a startup, take a government institution that has funds to buy this stuff, or take a big corporate industry company that could benefit, build the use case with the startup, help them package this stuff if you have any competency to do that, help them with that relation, help them execute a transaction, and do it on my platform. Right. So back to the thing of space awareness, I think it's a two-sided. One is the public mass, right? Which is, to Eva's point, I see more people wearing NASA shirts and NASA clothing now than, major brands, name them, right? You see it on the street everywhere. There's something that sits within people inherently when it comes to space that can be unlocked a little bit more effectively, to go back to your question. It's there. And that comes back to the smart fund thing and stuff. Like, come on, if people could, hey, you want to give $5 and help send some stuff to Mars for NASA? Yeah. Oh, why not? Right. So making it more accessible, back to the democratization thing, to that point that executive made. Yeah, democratization is when another guy can shoot a $4 million satellite into space. No, that's not. Democratization is when your neighbor can actively participate in the space economy. So if we want public awareness of space, this is why the tokenization of securities is going to be big once that gets regulated, is because your neighbor will be buying SpaceX shares, right? And he'll be doing it, and he can send them to his grandma, right? Like, that's, once you involve people more in the opportunities of something, they're more emotionally involved. That's why Bitcoin has people that will just ride or die for it. On Twitter, you got some politician says something bad about him, he's just bang, 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 bang. He's getting hit right away. Why? Because people discovered something that was, they didn't have to ask permission for, like, they were able to, to access it, to touch it, to feel it, to own it. Right. So nobody owns, the people that own space is what? How many people actively own something in the space economy? Very little. So long-winded answer, but I think we need to involve people in the ownership and participation of it more.
Yeah, and I think in general, space awareness is increasing. Elon Musk is kind of putting it in our faces with this awesome technology and sending humans. Virgin Galactic is about to start their human flights, and then you see the Virgin Galactic and the space sector reflected in finance. We're here in New York City, so finance is a big thing. There's a new space ETF fund coming out that made a lot of news. It made Virgin Galactic rally again with a bunch of other space stocks. So I think people are aware. I think it's going to take off more as the price of getting things into space goes down. That's the classic ratio. But yeah, I think it's increasing.
Quickly to your point there, though, and please take this the best way. A space ETF that you sit in New York, like, you're already talking in realms that the average person is, what's an ETF? What the hell are you talking about? right? And the unique thing I found around certain things that were done during the token, kind of the ICO boom, like I said, many times in nefarious ways. But I saw it where I had guys from a village in Nigeria trying to pass KYC, and he can't pass KYC because where he's from, you don't have an address. There's just a village, and the village has a number, and like he can't pass it, right? So you had people who are passing through these sort of things. Some kid in India, 18-year-old kid in India, who bought 1,000 tokens at pre-sale and then turned that into $10,000, and that's or he lost all his money. But the point is that that's what I want to get to. Yeah, of course, let the the seasoned people in first, but my goal is to really extend that so that some kid in India can own 1/1000th of a satellite and have a token and brag to his friends about it, and check this shit out, right? So that's the future I want to see, and maybe a little utopian, but I try to be realistic.
Yeah, no, yeah, that I think that's definitely better than like you said, finance is kind of a little bit walled off, but it's just kind of in the air over here in the city. So
Well, I know you're in New York. That's why I brought that point, is because just like with me, like I created Copernic Space, and because I'm in this space, even though I try to be as open-minded as possible, you kind of wall yourself into your own realities. And that's why I brought up the crypto people, because it's like, yo, you get it, but they don't get it. You're speaking a different language to them. And it's the same with finance people, is like, not everybody thinks about money, let alone in that way all the time,
Yeah, no, that's a cool vision for everyone from any country to, be able to get their piece of space without having to worry about if they're, if they have an address.
Being an accredited investor and investing a minimum $100,000 in the fund. Like that's the realities we're talking about right now, generally, if you're going to actively get involved in ownership in the space economy, or you're like me and you just create your own ownership, right?
So we had another question from Jamie Robb. For example, I think it was a follow-up question to their other question. For example, how do we make the layman understand how reliant we are on space?
What does the layman man use more than anything in his life day to day?
The phone, smartphone.
Yeah. So what was the quote? Somebody just told it to me last night. Actually, he's a VC in a pretty big space company. He was at my house yesterday. And what was the term? It was like, where everything is space, like we're walking. The point is that pretty much the majority of whether it's materials or tech or applications we're using is based off that. Hold up, I'll share it with you guys right here. If you didn't catch it, there's actually a full list here, and we mention a bunch of kind of more common things that people understand. Some were kind of even shocking to me. So I think Nike, a big element of even the original Nikes were based off space tech. So I'm going to share this link right here. You guys please read it if you haven't already. There you go. I think that'll answer some of what you're talking about, buddy. I don't know. I think it really depends on the individual that you're talking to. So if you see somebody who seemingly likes shoes, I guess you go the Nike route. You see somebody who's constantly in their phone, I guess you go the cell phone route. I don't know. But I guess, we have to individualize it. And that's why I said, when I was talking about with the space agency, I said, be personal about this. I've done events before, right? And it's like, oh, because we got 10 VCs, we did our job. Now these startups are going to be happy and an opportunity is going to come. No, that's not how it works. This VC is focused on this, and these are the sort of deals it's looking for, and this is the start, and then you match it, right? So I think we need to have a more individualized approach towards everyone in this space, and once again, not think that everybody thinks or moves in ways that we do.
Yeah, I think people would people don't think of GPS, Google Maps, Apple Maps coming from a satellite. I think they would understand real quick, God forbid if the system went down, right?
Well, location data is, I had an interesting call with the project 2 days ago that it's doing balloons. So I didn't know this, but I guess generally our weather and wind data is crap. So because satellites are I guess guesstimating it based off cloud speed, right? So here's a little application that seems small but is across the board. And a guy yesterday was at my house. He goes, "Oh yeah, hedge funds love data like that. They're always looking for weird little climate stuff so that they can, better leverage something. Why isn't there a marketplace that better addresses that, right?"
Yeah, throw the kitchen sink into their machine learning algorithms. All right, we have another question from Jan Kwiatkowski.
Kwiatkowski. Yeah, we got some Polish people on.
So
Yeah, let me do the Polish names so you
All
don't butcher them,
Yeah.
Yeah, buddy, it's open. I have one intern, actually, really great young guy. He's joined us. He's helped create some of the content that you've read. So yeah, man, if you're interested, reach out to me. I can't promise anything, of course, but as you see with the Lady Rocket Foundation, our mission, like a big thing is involving anyone, but especially young people in space entrepreneurship or whatever, anything that can give you more positive life experience. I'm more than happy to do it. Put something on your CV, and who knows, maybe you do a good enough job, we can work something else out.
Mhm. Awesome. If anybody doesn't have any more questions, we're coming up on 8 o'clock Eastern.
2 a.m. my time, so you guys keeping me up. I'm kidding. I'm up till like 3 anyway, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, we're late night people over here too in our family. Yeah, so I guess if that's it, Grant, thank you very much. If you guys want Grant's contact information, it's on the meetup page. Also, if you just go to
This website.
Copernic Space, is it copernicspace.com?
Yeah, you can contact at Copernic Space. Someone will reach out to you, if not me directly, if you go through there. But gb at copernicspace.com for me directly. So I want to thank the two of you, first off, for hosting me from your wonderful New York City living room. And thank everyone else who's on here. A few people I know, obviously, but majority I don't. So thank you for joining and listening to me talk. I hope it was at the very least interesting and entertaining at some points, but I hope that something valuable also comes out of it long term from somebody listening to all of this. I hope, Michael, we can make some of this. I see a recording. I hope we can make some of this at least public. You know me, I'll happily, of course, plug it and push it around. When I do so, or if I get to do so, I would, of course, appreciate if everybody here helped spread word, both for Copernic Space as well for New Space NYC. Yeah, Michael was like, okay, that's a drawn out thank you. You can just stop it. Either way, I'll end it there. Thanks everyone, and Mike, thanks once again for sending this up, man.
Yeah, we have some people that we're going to put you in touch with that we might be able to hopefully get on your platform. And anytime you're here in the city, let us know, and we'll.
And I'd love to, but you guys are like, it's like Escape from Los Angeles with 2-foot rats now right there. So I got a bunch of friends there. I'd love to be there. I love New York City. So when I'm in the States, I'll try to do it. And please, Warsaw's a little bit more open than New York City right now. So doors always open to you guys here if I'm here. And that goes to anybody who joined us today. If you want to talk and you're in the area in person, I'm more than happy to. So thank you everyone once again.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Thank you guys.
Have a good night.
You too.